The start of a new semester is usually the time when people meet new faces. That day marked the first day of the semester, and many students had just started dating and were already planning things to do together. For some, the new class meant new opportunities to meet someone of the opposite sex and maybe start a relationship. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case for Junichi and his close group of friends. This semester, Junichi found himself grouped once again with his usual crew, Shinpei, Keigo, and Minoru. That morning, the four of them were met with the all-too-familiar sight of new couples flirting in Class 2G. Shinpei looked visibly annoyed, pointing out how their job as students was supposed to be studying, not flirting all over the place. Junichi asked if any of them had done anything interesting over the break, but it was clear from Keigo and Minoru's blank stares that their vacations had been uneventful. Minoru even joked, asking if there were any cute girls from grade school around the neighborhood. Shinpei quickly threw it back at Junichi, asking if he had done anything either. Junichi admitted he hadn't. Shinpei couldn't believe it. It was already their second year of high school, yet nothing had changed. Junichi found himself wondering, if high school was supposed to be the prime time for dating, why was he still single while everyone else around him seemed to be in a relationship? Just then, Nene, Junichi's childhood friend, called out to him. She had brought a lunchbox that Junichi's mom had asked her to deliver. Junichi thanked her as he took it. Nene scolded him for being forgetful at the beginning of the new semester. Junichi shot back, teasing her for still acting like a little kid even though they were in high school. Nene playfully teased him in return, saying that maybe he liked girls who acted childlike. Junichi responded that his tastes had changed and that her petite body wasn't really his type anymore. He told her to hurry back to her class, which annoyed Nena, especially after she went out of her way to bring him lunch. She stuck her tongue out at him and walked off. Right after that, Keigo walked over and asked what had just happened. Shinpei looked surprised Junichi hadn't told them anything about it. Minoru asked who that grade school-looking girl was. Junichi explained that she was just his childhood friend who lived next door. But his three friends gave him a sharp look, clearly not buying the casual explanation. Junichi was confused by their reaction and reminded them that he saw Nani more like a little sister. Still, the three of them eagerly asked Junichi to introduce them to her. Junichi hesitated, asking if they were seriously interested in someone who acted so childish. To his surprise, that was exactly the kind of personality they liked. They began fantasizing about how innocent Nani probably was. Junichi immediately warned them that this kind of thinking could get them into serious trouble and reminded them that the law would not go easy on people acting like that. Shinpei questioned whether Junichi even considered himself a normal high schooler. Keigo commented on Nana's sweet face and innocent smile, while Minoru mentioned her petite figure looked like a character straight out of a manga. They even referred to her as a blessed gift, which left Junichi stunned that they could describe something so inappropriate in such glorifying terms. Suddenly, Yui entered the classroom and greeted Junichi. She said she was happy they were in the same class again and admitted they hadn't talked much the previous year. She hoped they could talk more this time around. Junichi was surprised by her openness. Yui was about to continue the conversation when one of her friends called her away. She apologized and quickly left. As soon as she walked away, Shinpei mentioned that Yui was smart and beautiful, but he thought she lacked a bit in the chest area. Junichi told him to keep it down, especially since Shinpei had been oddly fixated on that one trait all morning. For Junichi, Yui's charm was about much more than just appearance. Keigo agreed, saying that even if she wasn't curvy, Yui still had an innocent, graceful vibe that made her special. Minoru added with a smirk that girls who seemed pure often turned out to be surprisingly bold. Junichi was baffled by the whole conversation. To him, it felt like they were writing the first page of a dictionary titled, "Why We're Still Single." Shinpei wondered out loud why none of them were popular, and Keigo admitted he really wanted a girlfriend, just to experience that kind of connection. The three of them then pulled out an adult magazine and started flipping through it together. Seeing the magazine, Junichi couldn't help but wonder why his friends were reading that kind of thing in class. He thought they should at least care a little about how others saw them, and maybe that's why they were never popular. Shinpei told Junichi not to disturb them. In fact, Shinpei said he was reading an adult magazine in class on purpose just to mess with everyone's mood. Junichi started to worry that if he kept hanging out with those three, his reputation at school would be ruined. Shinpei said that if Junichi was still one of them, then he had to join in. Junichi refused, but Shinpei kept insisting, saying the magazine was amazing. Once Junichi saw the flashy images inside, he caved. Shinpei handed him the magazine, but just then, Yukana's voice caught him off guard. Startled, Junichi accidentally tossed the magazine away. As he reached to pick it up, he quickly said it wasn't his. Yukana stepped on the magazine and asked why he didn't just look at that kind of thing at home by himself. She said it was gross. At that moment, Junichi felt incredibly embarrassed, like he had lost all dignity. During the break, Shinpei, Minoru, and Keigo talked about what had just happened with Yukana. Keigo said that if only Yukana had lifted her leg a little higher, they might have seen something more. Minoru joked about how great it would be if there were grade school girls like Yukana. Shinpei suggested that one of them should try going after Yukana because she would probably be easy to get. Junichi disagreed, saying that it was impossible and that the three of them were being way too optimistic. He was especially frustrated because Yukana had gotten angry at him thanks to their antics. Shinpei then claimed that Yukana was the kind of girl who'd go along with anything and that everyone knew it. Junichi demanded proof. So Shinpei showed him a magazine and read a story supposedly submitted by a high school freshman from Shibuya, Tokyo. The story was about a girl who was alone with a guy on the school rooftop. At first, she resisted his advances, but eventually he started touching her chest and lower body, then pushed her against the wall and continued making moves. Junichi was shocked and asked if all girls were really like that. He started imagining Yukana on top of him, showing off her body and inviting him to do something intimate so that he wouldn't need magazines anymore. While he was caught up in that fantasy, Shinpei, Minoru, and Keiko had already decided that Junichi would be the one to go after Yukana and confess to her. Junichi was stunned and said there was no way he could do it. Shinpei told him to calm down and said someone once told him that girls like Yukana were easy to flirt with. Shinpei was sure that if Junichi begged hard enough, it would work. Junichi was still hesitant, but then Shinpei reminded him that Junichi wanted to lose his virginity, didn't he? Shinpei told Minoru to hold Junichi down, while Keigo was sent to put a love letter in Yukana's locker. Junichi tried to stop them, but he couldn't break free from Minoru's grip. After class ended, Yukana was supposed to go to karaoke with Renko. But when she opened her shoe locker, she found the letter. She told Renko to go ahead without her because there was something she needed to take care of. Renko really wanted to go karaoke with Yukana and even offered to wait until she was done, but Yukana turned her down, saying it might take a while. She promised they'd go another time. Yukana sincerely apologized, and thankfully, Renko understood and left. After that, Yukana met Junichi behind the school building. Junichi couldn't believe she actually came to meet him. He was extremely nervous. Yukana asked what he wanted to talk about. Junichi was still overwhelmed and frustrated with his friends for setting him up like this. Earlier, they had cheered him on, convinced that he could pull it off. But the truth was, Junichi didn't even know Yukana. Still, they were pushing him to confess to her. Junichi didn't know what to say. He remembered Shinpei's advice: if he got on his knees and begged, he might succeed. So Junichi gathered his courage, thinking this was his chance to finally lose his virginity. He knelt down and pleaded with Yukana to go out with him. Yukana was immediately put off. She said it was disgusting, especially coming from a guy who read adult magazines, and that he had just wasted her time. She admitted Junichi wasn't bad-looking, that there was no way she'd date someone who literally begged like that. Junichi started questioning whether he still deserved to be called a man after confessing to a girl while kneeling and begging like that. He was convinced that he would be the laughingstock of the class and would be known as the pervert who got down on his knees to beg. Feeling defeated, Junichi believed his youth was doomed and that he would stay a virgin forever. When he opened his eyes, he was unexpectedly greeted by the sight of Yukana's underwear, which oddly brought his spirits back up. Yukana asked him why he suddenly got down on his knees like that, saying it was troublesome for her. Junichi apologized and admitted he just got carried away by the moment, acknowledging that it was pretty ridiculous. Yukana found it odd that if he realized it was foolish, he didn't just stand up. Junichi responded that he didn't want to stand. Yukana was confused since he was the one who made the plea in the first place, but now he was being so stubborn. Junichi hesitated to get up because from that angle, he could see Yukana's underwear clearly. To him, standing up meant throwing away such a golden opportunity, especially since, deep down, his real goal was to lose his virginity. Yukana then asked why he had chosen her and what exactly he liked about her. Junichi was stumped. If he said what he was really thinking, there was no doubt he would be instantly rejected. So he tried to think carefully about his answer. Eventually, he said he liked how flirtatious Yukana was. Yukana saw right through him and concluded that he only wanted to lose his virginity, and that's why he had gone so far as to beg like that. Junichi was stunned by how accurately Yukana had read his mind. She explained that she was always cautious about things like that and said she wouldn't date someone if that was the only reason. Junichi tried to deny it, claiming he wasn't that kind of guy. At that point, he had mentally given up and was just waiting for the inevitable rejection. He imagined what would happen if she really found out the truth, girls running away from him and labeling him as a guy only interested in dirty things. He was sure that if that happened, it would be the end for him. The only thing left to do would be to run away. Yukana asked him to stop kneeling and invited him to sit next to her. Junichi glanced again at the lower part of her body, which now looked even clearer than before. But deep inside, a part of him was still thinking about making a run for it. After wrestling with his own thoughts, Junichi claimed that he just wanted to lower his head while talking. Yukana, however, revealed that she was already fed up with the way he kept sneaking glances at her underwear. Junichi was shocked to realize she had noticed all along. Yukana crouched down and told him that he was really serious about staring. Junichi quickly said it wasn't intentional. It was just a coincidence. Yukana smiled and said he was funny. Junichi was confused as Yukana moved closer to him. Her chest was so close that he could even smell her sweet scent. Yukana mentioned that she had crouched down in front of him so it would be easier for him to see. Hearing that, Junichi was stunned by what she was doing. Yukana told him to look again, assuring him that no one else would come by and suggested that they just go for it. She then asked if he wanted to see her chest again, telling him to just be honest. If he was, she'd let him get a closer look. Junichi couldn't believe Yukana was teasing him like that. He was starting to lose his composure. His expression became more tense, and Yukana laughed, saying it was obvious he wanted to see. No matter how anyone looked at him, she was sure he was still a virgin. At that moment, Junichi realized just how terrifying she was. She had no problem toying with his feelings like that. Yukana then asked again if he truly liked her. Junichi thought it had to be a trap. A typical guy would have fallen for it immediately, but someone like him, just a hopeless virgin, wouldn't get caught. He stood up and laughed, telling her to go ahead and crush him if she wanted to. He had already come to terms with being seen as a pervert and a loser. His dreams of a sparkling high school life were already over, and he accepted it. But Yukana grabbed his hand and said she didn't understand anything he was talking about. She gently pushed him back against the wall and confessed that she liked him. Not only that, she also said she wanted to be his girlfriend. Junichi was shocked. He could hardly believe what he had just heard. Junichi could hardly believe it when he thought about Yukana agreeing to be his girlfriend. To him, it just didn't make any sense. He found it impossible to believe that a cute, stylish gal with a curvy figure would actually want to date him. Junichi was convinced that Yukana had some kind of hidden agenda. Maybe she wanted to catch him off guard and then spread rumors about him around the school. But at the same time, a part of him didn't want to doubt her. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were just too different from the start. Junichi even wondered if those kinds of thoughts were the reason he was still a virgin. Conflicting thoughts kept battling in his head until suddenly, his more lustful imagination stepped in and tried to settle the argument. That side of his brain insisted that the only thing that mattered was figuring out how to get close to this busty gal so he could live out those fantasies. He started daydreaming about a situation where Yukana invited him to do something inappropriate at school. In his imagination, he turned her down at first, worried it might get them into trouble. But Yukana kept teasing him, tempting him until he gave in. She even told him to think about the consequences later, after they had done it. The daydream got so intense that Junichi ended up falling off his bed. The next morning on his way to school, he still couldn't stop thinking about that wild fantasy involving Yukana. He wondered what he'd do if that fantasy somehow became real. In truth, he didn't even feel like he was actually dating someone as sweet as Yukana, especially because after he confessed his feelings the day before, Yukana had so much fun teasing him. Junichi started to feel like maybe he should keep his distance from her. Out of nowhere, Shinpei tapped him on the shoulder and gave him a scare. Shinpei apologized for what happened the day before. He admitted that he, Keigo, and Minoru had pushed things too far. After all, they were the ones who had forced Junichi to confess to Yukana. Shinpei asked how everything had gone, guessing that Yukana had probably done something awful to him. He wanted Junichi to tell him everything. Junichi replied that Yukana had definitely shown up, and she was going to ruin his high school life. Shinpei didn't expect things to be that bad. Junichi admitted that he had no idea what to do now. The three friends then promised that no matter what bad rumors Yukana might spread or whatever she ended up doing to him, they'd always have his back. They swore to always be his friends. Junichi was moved. He realized that the three of them had always been there for him. So there was no need to get all depressed over a girl. Not long after, Junichi got a text. It was a selfie from Yukana. His friends were shocked. They never expected Yukana to actually send him a photo. It turned out Yukana had asked for his number the day before. Once Keigo saw it, he suddenly backed away, refusing to see Junichi as a friend anymore, because now Junichi was popular. Shinpei also said he hated him and couldn't handle the reality of it. Minoru even asked if Yukana had a younger sister in grade school. The three of them walked away from Junichi, who was left confused by how quickly they had turned on him. He hadn't expected them to act like that. Junichi told himself that just because Yukana agreed to be his girlfriend didn't mean he was suddenly popular. Shinpei then asked if Junichi and Yukana had kissed yet. Junichi denied it, explaining that they had only started dating the day before. Shinpei explained that for gals, kissing was more like saying hello. If a gal liked a guy, she would kiss him often, like it was just a part of breathing. Keigo admitted he didn't even know if that was true. Minoru got curious and asked if younger gals were the same way. Junichi admitted that Yukana was definitely a gal, so maybe it wouldn't be that hard to kiss her. Once again, he started fantasizing, this time about Yukana giving him a kiss as a good morning greeting. Shinpei told him that the most important thing was choosing the right place. He suggested Junichi take Yukana to a karaoke spot. Junichi asked why it had to be karaoke. Keigo and Minoru were curious too. Shinpei was surprised they didn't know. That, he said, was exactly why the three of them were still virgins, even though he was one too. Shinpei mentioned that popular people often use karaoke rooms as a substitute for hotels. He said he found this out while working part-time at a karaoke place and became familiar with what he called the romantic rules of karaoke. According to him, the process usually starts with couples choosing flirtatious songs to sing, then having fun doing duets, and eventually taking their clothes off. Once all three steps are done, things tend to escalate from there. Junichi was surprised to hear this. Shinpei even started nosebleeding just from imagining it, and Junichi quickly helped him. Shinpei couldn't believe that a place meant for singing and having fun could end up being used for intimate moments by couples. He encouraged Junichi to take Yukana to a karaoke place, saying that if he did, Junichi might finally get a kiss from Yukana and possibly lose his virginity. When Junichi got to class, he started thinking about how he could ask Yukana to go to karaoke with him. Then Yui suddenly greeted him, catching him off guard. She asked why he looked so down that early in the morning and if something was on his mind. Junichi told her it was nothing, even though she offered to give him advice if he needed it. He politely declined and thanked her. In truth, he couldn't imagine asking Yui for tips on how to invite Yukana to karaoke and what might happen afterward. Just then, Yukana showed up and wrapped her arm around Junichi. He was completely caught off guard, especially since his arm ended up brushing against Yukana's soft chest. Yukana asked if Junichi had seen the selfie she sent earlier and if he thought she looked cute. Junichi admitted that she did, and he blushed as she got closer. Yui, watching from nearby, was surprised at how close Junichi and Yukana had gotten. Yukana, without hesitation, told the entire class that she and Junichi had started dating the day before. Naturally, everyone was shocked. After school, Junichi looked gloomy. Earlier that morning, people who usually never talked to him suddenly started approaching him, which left him with no chance to ask Yukana to go to karaoke. Plus, Yukana had been chatting with her friends all day, so he couldn't find the right moment to talk to her. When Shinpei, Keigo, and Minoru were about to head home, Junichi called out to them. Instead of stopping, they ignored him. Confused, Junichi ran after them, wondering why they were acting that way. Keigo explained that since Junichi had a beautiful girlfriend now, there was no reason for him to hang out with three single guys like them anymore. Shinpei even jokingly said he hoped Junichi burned in a fire with all the other popular kids as they left the school. Minoru, on the other hand, asked if Junichi had found out whether Yukana had a younger sister. Junichi was shocked and called them all terrible. He felt like he was the one who should be overwhelmed, not them. Shinpei admitted that he was upset and really jealous. Junichi couldn't understand it. After all, they were the ones who pushed him into confessing to Yukana in the first place, and now they were acting like he had betrayed them. After the three of them left, Yukana approached Junichi, took his hand, and asked him to come with her. At that moment, Nani saw Junichi walking hand in hand with Yukana. She called out to him and asked why he was holding Yukana's hand. Yukana explained that she and Junichi were dating, so holding hands made perfect sense. Hearing that, Nani started crying. She called Junichi an idiot and ran off. Yukana then asked if that girl was Junichi's little sister, saying Nene looked tiny and adorable. Junichi replied that Nene was just like a little sister to him, nothing more. Yukana didn't say anything else and simply invited Junichi to come along. He asked where they were going. She said it was somewhere they could scream as much as they wanted and feel completely relaxed. It turned out she had taken him to a karaoke place. Junichi had actually thought they might be going to a hotel, and Shinpei's comment about karaoke being a hotel substitute came rushing back into his mind. Junichi started to panic a little, especially since he'd only ever gone to karaoke with his three ridiculous friends. Now here he was with Yukana, and he had no idea what kind of song he should sing with a gal. Yukana admitted she was happy that Junichi came with her, especially because she really wanted to sing, but none of her friends were available to go with her. That was when Junichi realized he was only a last-minute replacement. Still, he was completely captivated by how beautiful Yukana looked when she smiled and told him they were on a date. Junichi got nervous and couldn't decide what song to sing. He noticed a warning sign that reminded guests not to use the karaoke room for anything other than singing. That made him remember what Shinpei once said. That kind of warning usually means couples had done inappropriate things in the room. Suddenly, Yukana opened the door and came back in with drinks, surprising Junichi so much that he yelped. At that moment, Junichi thought to himself that Yukana would never let him kiss her or go further than that. The room was really small, so when Yukana walked past him, her body pressed close to his, which only made Junichi even more anxious. He wondered if Yukana had done that on purpose to tease him. Junichi could feel the warmth of her arms so close to his and started thinking whether that was some kind of sign. He imagined her sitting on his lap, leaning back and getting comfortable before singing together. But in that kind of situation, he felt like he wouldn't be able to sing at all. His imagination went overboard. He even pictured Yukana giving him a massage in an overly sensitive spot. But as he got lost in those wild thoughts, Yukana was already singing. That was when Junichi realized he was the only one overthinking things. Yukana was genuinely enjoying the song and she truly just wanted to sing. After she finished, Yukana asked why Junichi hadn't queued up a song yet. He admitted he hadn't picked one, so she could go ahead and sing again if she wanted. While Junichi started looking for a song to sing, he realized he didn't know any of the top hits and could only sing anime songs. He was sure a gal like Yukana wouldn't enjoy that. Junichi thought about picking a non-anime song that Yukana might not be familiar with. But then, as Yukana started singing again, he was shocked to hear that it was a rather suggestive song. It reminded him of what Shinpei had said, that gals often picked provocative songs first. After she finished singing, Junichi was still unsure of what to pick, so Yukana helped him out by choosing a song that everyone would know. To his surprise, she picked an anime song and invited him to sing it with her. Yukana looked genuinely happy as they sang together. She mentioned how nostalgic it felt singing that song again. Junichi was surprised to find out that Yukana liked anime songs too. She explained that anyone from their generation would know that one. She even said she knew a few anime songs and told Junichi not to be shy around her. That made Junichi wonder, maybe Yukana had been paying attention to him all along. Yukana asked him to sing another one with her, and suddenly, Junichi realized that everything they were doing was exactly what Shinpei described, having fun, singing duets. Junichi couldn't believe the idea that Yukana might actually be planning anything inappropriate. But then, out of nowhere, Yukana said she felt hot and took off her jacket. It was exactly like what Shinpei had described. Junichi's mind started racing again, thinking that maybe Yukana really was planning to do something more. But another part of him argued that maybe Shinpei was just making things up and something like that wouldn't happen at a karaoke place. That a more confident voice in his mind told him not to embarrass or disrespect her. In that moment, Junichi imagined Yukana as a beautiful rose in full bloom, passionate and vibrant. If he wanted to win her heart, he needed to take the first step. Sometimes a real man has to be brave enough to put himself out there for the one he cares about. But another part of Junichi's mind pushed back, saying he wasn't ready to take that kind of risk, especially when there was no clear sign that Yukana had that kind of intention at all. Junichi's inner desires insisted that only he could decide when intimacy should happen. But the cooler, more rational side of him reminded that before anything like that could happen, there was something important that needed to come first, a passionate kiss. If he failed to do that, he wouldn't be a real man, just a total loser. Motivated by this thought, Junichi leaned in toward Yukana, determined to kiss her. He believed that if he didn't go through with it, he would never be able to call himself a man. But suddenly, Yukana interrupted the moment and pointed out that Junichi had a nose hair sticking out. Embarrassed and frozen in place, Junichi didn't know how to respond. Yukana then left the room, saying she needed to go to the bathroom. In truth, she had realized what Junichi was trying to do. She understood that he was about to kiss her, but to her, a kiss wasn't something to be given away so easily. After that, the two of them left the karaoke place together. Junichi ended up kneeling down outside, still feeling incredibly embarrassed about the nose hair incident. He couldn't stop thinking about it and felt deeply ashamed. To his surprise, Yukana told him that she had fun and that maybe they could go karaoke again sometime. Junichi was taken aback by her words. Yukana then told him to get up and invited him to walk home with her. From a distance, Ranko had been watching the two of them. That's when she realized how close Yukana and Junichi had actually become. One morning, Junichi was caught off guard by a love letter he found in his locker. He quickly opened it and saw that the sender had written they would be waiting for him behind the school. Junichi was completely surprised, especially when his friends suddenly showed up and started questioning why he always got so lucky. None of them expected someone would actually leave a letter in Junichi's locker and ask to meet up with him. Shinpei commented that whoever sent the letter was being a bit bold. He asked Junichi to hand over the letter, but Junichi explained that there was no name on it. He figured it must have been someone playing a prank. Shinpei guessed the sender was just too shy to put down a name, and Keigo encouraged Junichi to go meet the person since that was clearly what they wanted. At that point, Minoru chimed in, joking that he wished someone would send him a letter too. Junichi admitted that he could not meet up with another girl without Yukana's permission. Shinpei said Yukana might actually get mad if Junichi ignored a love letter like that. Junichi started imagining Yukana scolding him for brushing it off. Shinpei added, "What if a cute girl really is waiting for you right now?" Keigo was confused because just a moment ago, Shinpei seemed jealous, but now he was supporting him. Shinpei whispered to Keigo that if Junichi got close to a popular girl, they might benefit just by being his friends. Keigo got a little too excited at the idea. Minoru thought maybe he should try writing a love letter himself. With all that talk, Keigo gave Junichi a loud and cheerful pep talk. But it turned out Junichi could hear their entire plan loud and clear. Junichi said he felt kind of bad ignoring the girl who sent the letter, so he decided to go meet her. The girl behind the letter turned out to be a gal named Renko. That completely threw Junichi off because he had been imagining someone sweet and shy. Renko confidently walked up to him and made a few teasing comments. As she got closer, Junichi got so nervous that even his heartbeat felt louder. His face turned red when she leaned in close and she laughed at how flustered he looked. Renko jokingly asked if he wanted to hang out right there and then. Junichi quickly refused, too nervous to respond properly. He had no idea what Renko was trying to do. Renko kept teasing him, making it hard for Junichi to stay calm. Suddenly, Yukana's voice called out his name. Junichi panicked, thinking she would be furious if she thought he was doing something wrong. He imagined the worst possible outcome. But when Yukana arrived, she smiled instead and looked a bit confused by what Renko was doing. Renko apologized playfully, leaving Junichi unsure about what was going on. Yukana asked how long Renko planned to stay that close to Junichi. Then she helped Renko stand up and introduce her to Junichi, explaining that Renko was actually 1 year older than both of them. Renko greeted Junichi and casually compared herself to Yukana. Junichi greeted her back, finally realizing that Renko was one of Yukana's friends. Yukana told Renko she should have said something if she wanted to meet Junichi, but Renko said doing it this way was more exciting. She laughed as she remembered Yukana's reaction. Yukana explained that she and Renko had been friends since grade school. Renko playfully teased Yukana, bringing up some memories that made Yukana visibly embarrassed. Junichi was overwhelmed and unsure if he should even be there for their conversation. Renko continued teasing Yukana, making Junichi notice how different their dynamic was compared to usual. Yukana, who was often the confident one, seemed completely outmatched by Renko's bold personality. Renko suddenly asked Yukana how far things had gone between her and Junichi, once again teasing him. Yukana blushed and avoided the question, then walked over to Junichi and said she would head home with him. Renko looked annoyed watching them walk off together. She warned Junichi to be careful around her. Then she mentioned, almost like a challenge, that she might try to come between them. That night, Junichi received a message from Yukana saying she wanted to hang out with him and Renko. Junichi was thrilled. The next day, Junichi went out with Yukana and Renko. They went bowling and had lunch together afterward. His face turned red when he saw how close Yukana and Renko were acting around each other. Being with them made the day even more fun. While they were walking around, Nene saw them from a distance. She was shocked to see that Junichi now seemed to be spending time with more than one girl. Heartbroken, she started crying and quickly left. At that moment, Yukana and Renko were shopping in a clothing store. Yukana held up an outfit she thought would suit Renko, while Renko showed a pair of shorts she thought would look good on Yukana. However, Yukana felt it was a little too revealing for her. She then picked out something else and asked Junichi which outfit he liked better. Junichi started imagining Yukana in both outfits, but all he could think about was how great she would look in them. He eventually chose one, but Renko chimed in, saying the other one might suit Yukana more since it showed off her arms better. After that, they went to a vintage clothing shop. Junichi found it harder to pick clothes there than at the previous store. He was surprised to learn that Yukana liked that kind of style and began wondering if she actually wore those kinds of outfits often. Not long after, Yukana and Renko came out in the clothes they had picked. They both looked amazing. Yukana joked that she had chosen something to turn heads. Renko asked Junichi if he liked that kind of outfit. Junichi stayed quiet, which made Yukana wonder if there was something on his mind. In truth, Junichi thought the outfit suited Yukana perfectly. To him, she did not need flashy clothes to stand out. Just being herself was more than enough. Yukana noticed Junichi staring and teased him for looking at her too much. Junichi quickly said he was just admiring her overall appearance. After leaving the store, Renko was surprised that Yukana did not buy the outfit, especially since she seemed to really like it. Yukana replied that maybe she would get it another time. Soon after, two men approached them and asked Yukana for directions to the train station. Yukana politely pointed them the right way, but instead of leaving, the two men began acting overly friendly. Tabane, who happened to be nearby, noticed and commented that the two guys looked like they were trying to flirt. The men then suggested they all hang out together. Junichi stepped forward and asked them to stop bothering Yukana. The men ignored him and even told Junichi to come along too. Junichi, determined to protect Yukana, told them that he was her boyfriend. Instead of backing off, one of the men shoved him and told him to stop pretending to be cool. Yukana looked concerned, but the two men made another rude comment saying she should leave Junichi and come with them instead. Suddenly, Ranko stepped forward and offered to go with the men. They smiled and suggested going somewhere quieter. Ranko confidently linked arms with both of them and walked off. Junichi got up and said he was fine, but he was worried about Ranko. Just then, Ranko came back and casually said that she had handled the situation. Junichi asked if she was alright. Ranko smiled and said the two men understood after having a little talk. In truth, she had managed to scare them off on her own. On his way home, Junichi felt disappointed in himself for not being able to do more. He thought he should at least be strong enough to protect Yukana. While he was deep in thought, Ranko suddenly appeared and greeted him. Junichi asked why Ranko was there. She said she thought he looked cool earlier when he stepped up to protect them. Ranko then admitted she might actually have feelings for him too. Junichi was completely shocked. She then asked if she could come inside to talk. Junichi agreed, still trying to process everything. Luckily, his parents were not home. Inside, Ranko thanked him for letting her in and said she appreciated the time together, but she seemed to think Junichi had invited her over for a different reason. When Junichi tried to explain, Ranko suddenly hugged him. She said it was funny how he was acting calm but seemed nervous at the same time. She pointed out that he froze when she got close and teased him a little about it. Junichi was stunned and unsure of what to do. Ranko leaned in and asked if he was still trying to hold back. She said it was kind of his fault for letting them be alone together like that. Then she asked whether he was planning to wait for Yukana or take a different path. Junichi started wondering what would happen if he gave in to Ranko. Ranko laughed and said that pretty soon she might stop calling him a virgin and start calling him by his name, Junichi. That reminded him how recently people had been calling him by his real name more often, especially Yukana, who always did it with a smile. Thinking about Yukana gave him the strength to sit up and gently push Ranko away. He told her that he could not do something so personal with just anyone. He asked her not to treat him like he was shallow, saying that he only wanted to share something meaningful with someone he truly cared about. Junichi made it clear that he wanted his first time to be with Yukana and no one else. Suddenly, Ranko's expression changed. She became upset and said she could not let that happen. She pushed Junichi back down and told him to keep his feelings away from Yukana. Junichi did not expect such a strong reaction from her. Ranko said she just could not understand why Yukana would choose someone like him. She made it clear that she was not going to just stand by and let him have Yukana. That made Junichi wonder, could Ranko actually have feelings for Yukana? Just then, the doorbell rang, but neither of them noticed. Ranko suddenly became more aggressive and shouted that she would make sure no other girl would be interested in Junichi. At that exact moment, Yukana walked into the house and stopped her. Yukana explained that she had been suspicious, followed Junichi, heard yelling, and had rung the bell earlier. Ranko froze, clearly panicked that Yukana might have overheard what she said. Junichi realized things were spiraling and quickly explained that nothing had happened. Yukana looked hurt and called him out, feeling betrayed that he had let another girl into his house, especially since she had never been invited over herself. Junichi was slightly relieved, thinking Yukana had not heard the earlier conversation. Ranko laughed awkwardly and claimed that Junichi would never have gone through with anything anyway. She said she was just testing him. Yukana asked why Ranko would do something like that. Ranko explained she just wanted to know if Junichi was someone who would easily give in. Junichi was confused by how quickly Ranko's attitude shifted after Yukana appeared. After confirming that nothing serious had happened, Yukana told Ranko that the test might have been a little much for someone like Junichi. Then she asked if that meant Ranko actually supported their relationship. She thanked Ranko and said she really appreciated her. That smile from Yukana reminded Ranko of their childhood and made her emotional. Yukana was surprised to see Ranko suddenly crying. Ranko dropped to her knees, apologized, and continued crying. Yukana gently comforted her by placing a hand on her head and speaking softly. Junichi realized that the whole situation had been intense and even a little frightening, but he could sort of understand how things had escalated. The next day on his way to school, Junichi was still processing everything that had happened. He felt somewhat relieved, thinking Ranko would not try anything strange again. But out of nowhere, Ranko cornered him against a wall and said she still was not ready to accept him. She also told him not to say anything to Yukana about her feelings. Junichi smiled at her words, which only made Ranko more irritated. She snapped at him and said he was unbelievable. Then, in typical Ranko fashion, she playfully threw him into a headlock. Just at that moment, Yu happened to overhear their conversation. She looked irritated and could not believe that Junichi actually seemed interested in someone other than her. Yui always believed the world existed just for her. Back in middle school, her classmates would always praise her. They admired how smart she was and how cute she looked. Everyone treated her kindly, constantly offering to help and always being friendly. But that started to shift the day. Junichi approached her just to return her eraser that had fallen. Yui looked at Junichi like he was some kind of pet. That night, Junichi was doing some research about gals. He ended up watching videos about them, trying to understand their different styles and personalities, especially since lately he had been surrounded by girls like that. He wanted to learn about the kinds of gals that existed in the world besides Yukana and Ranko. One video caught his attention. A gal who confidently showed off her charm. Junichi quickly reminded himself to stay focused. He was only watching this stuff for Yukana's sake. He went through several videos, one after another, to understand the culture better. In one of them, he saw a streamer from Boit channel named Bo. She said she was having a good day because her staff had done their jobs well. Then she talked about one staff member who had been a bit annoying and maybe needed a bit of discipline. Junichi could not help but admire how cute Bo looked on screen. The next day at school, every student who passed by Yui would greet her. But Yui, despite looking friendly on the outside, only saw those people as her subordinates. She laughed to herself, watching them all work hard in the morning like busy little servants. Around that time, Yui overheard Junichi talking with his 3 close friends. They were chatting about a cute girl Shinpei and Keigo had seen online. Meanwhile, Minoru, as usual, was searching for clips of young-looking girls since he had an obvious obsession with loli characters. Turned out the girl Keigo had watched was the same one Junichi had seen the night before, Bo from Boit channel. Junichi admitted that she really was cute. Even Shinpei went as far as calling her an angel, maybe even a goddess. Her style was like a gal, but her vibe was graceful, almost like a princess. Shinpei was convinced she was something extraordinary. Junichi found it odd that they were talking so loudly about it. Shinpei said he and Keigo just got hyped watching Bo. He even started to think he might have seen her somewhere before, but figured there was no way he could know someone that beautiful. Minoru stayed glued to his screen, still into his favorite genre. Shinpei kept trying to recall where he might have seen Bo before, but nothing came to mind. Keigo just kept cheering him on. Later, during lunch break, Junichi and Yukana ate together behind the school. Yukana mentioned how nice it felt to have lunch outside for a change. Junichi was super nervous. He never imagined he would get the chance to eat lunch with Yukana. He even started daydreaming about her feeding him. Worse, he imagined her feeding him from her own mouth. He had no idea how he would handle a situation like that. Still, he convinced himself that he would manage if it ever happened. Yukana noticed something off and asked why his face looked so weird. Junichi snapped out of it, startled, and said everything was fine. He tried to tell himself that kind of romantic moment would never happen, especially with Ranko sitting right there with them. Ranko then teased him, asking if he was thinking something weird. Yukana scolded her for bringing up something gross during lunch. The 2 girls laughed together. Meanwhile, Junichi started to feel uneasy. He could not help but wonder if Ranko was planning something shady again after what she had pulled the other day. The look Ranko gave him was intense enough to make him nervous. Then, out of nowhere, Yui showed up and asked if she could talk to Junichi for a moment. He was surprised that Yui suddenly wanted to speak with him. Ranko called her rude for interrupting their meal and told her to go away. Yui apologized politely and said she just needed a word with Junichi, but then decided to leave instead. Junichi tried to stop her, but Yui said it would be better if they talked later. After she walked away, Ranko immediately asked if Junichi had some kind of thing going on with Yui. Junichi denied it, but Ranko thought he looked suspicious. He assured her that there was nothing going on between them. Still, Ranko felt uneasy about Yui. No matter how sweet Yui looked on the outside, Ranko sensed something dangerous about her. After school ended, Yukana told Junichi that she was going out with her friends. Junichi looked down, which made Yukana tease him by saying he looked like a puppy waiting for its owner to come home. Junichi denied it, but Yukana smiled and left with her friends. Not long after Yukana walked away, Yui suddenly approached Junichi, surprising him. She apologized for not being able to talk to him during lunch earlier. Yui explained that a teacher had asked her to carry something, but since it was too much, she wanted to ask for Junichi's help. Junichi was taken aback. Yui asked if he didn't want to help her, and Junichi quickly agreed. Yui smiled and thanked him. Unexpectedly, Yui took Junichi to a cafe instead. Junichi was confused since he thought she needed help carrying something. But instead, they had ended up at a cafe. Yui asked what Junichi wanted to order. A bit nervous, Junichi said he would have a coffee. Yui then ordered the drinks. Junichi started wondering whether Yui had ignored the teacher's request and was skipping out. But that didn't sound like her at all. Yui was known for being a serious student. Then it suddenly crossed Junichi's mind that there were types of gals who were very serious, but in a different kind of way. He imagined Yui sitting close next to him and saying the cafe didn't get many customers, so they had the place to themselves. Junichi snapped back to reality when Yui suddenly hugged him. She said the cafe owner had stepped out to buy something, so they wouldn't be bothered no matter how noisy things got. Junichi immediately told her she shouldn't be doing that. He started to panic, especially when he imagined Yui getting too close. His mind was racing. When the cafe owner returned and served the drinks, Yui asked Junichi about Yukana. She was curious why he had been spending more time with Yukana lately. She even asked if Junichi was dating her. Junichi replied that technically, yes, they were dating. Yui looked surprised and said she thought someone like Junichi didn't really match a girl like Yukana. Junichi admitted he was surprised too, but he added that Yukana had a lot of good sides that people didn't always see. Hearing that made Yui visibly upset.